Hi there, everybody. You'll have to forgive the temporary idle screen. A lot of my stream visuals are under construction right now. Or I guess reconstruction. I'm getting them updated since the old ones I had made were all from when I still used Source Filmmaker. And I'm going to get those changed. For now, I just threw on some like Wind Waker ambience. So I just wanted to jump on my stream, talk a little bit on what I've been working on, respond to chat, and that's mostly it. There are a lot of games that have come out. Hi-Fi Rush, a lot of people have been recommending to me. Metroid Prime Remaster, which caught me off guard. And I got through like 70% through Metroid Prime 1, and then I lost my progress. And I was feeling really demotivated from finishing the game again. So for that remaster to come out, it is the perfect opportunity for me to play that. I don't know or think I'm going to stream either of those games tonight, just because it's my first stream back in a month or two. But those may or may not be on the agenda for the stream eventually. Thank you for the subs, Crystal and Majik and Panda Cat, Blue, and any others I'm sure I'll miss. So I'll be a bit more responsive to chat in a moment. I just wanted to figure out, because if you have access to my Patreon, I've been doing monthly updates on what I'm working on, but I know not everyone has access to that. So there's a lot of progress that I maybe haven't publicly shared yet. So first and foremost, let's get the important stuff out of the way. Tonberry. It's not important. I just learned that my OC looks like a Tonberry from Final Fantasy. And I can't stop thinking about it. But that's not relevant to the video, I promise. So, if you've been wondering, it's been about 3 months since my last upload. I've been working on... Originally, it was a FUNKe study on Junji Ito's manga, because I have pretty much all of his translated horror manga. One of my favorite mangaka ever. And there's a lot I could talk about. But as I was working on it, I kind of fell back into this feeling I have a lot with videos, which is I like doing reviewy, talk about a thing stuff. But I've kind of had this itch to... When I made the concept albums video, I had a lot of fun just having a premise of my characters just in a little apartment. And I can throw in all these little visual gags through animation, right? So I'm talking about concept albums, but there's this whole second side to it. So with this video, I kind of wanted to do something like that. And this video has gone through like 5 iterations. But what I'll say now is I'm sitting on a 20-minute long storyboard, really an animatic at this point. 20-minute fully animated video that's about Junji Ito, but I would say it leans heavily into like its own original work, and then it just sort of brings up certain Junji Ito stories to contextualize it. I know nothing I can say can really paint the whole picture, and so I apologize if I leave you confused, but I don't know, it's sort of an original animation, but with a lot of that video essay stuff I tend to do. It's the most artsy and potentially confusing video I've made to date. Anyways, because it's 20 minutes of original animation, not canned or even B-roll. There's really not any B-roll for me to show in this video, other than occasional stills or panels from these manga. So I have to go through and animate all of this video. I have to do all of the lip sync, all of the cleanup. And another thing you need to understand is pretty much all of this video takes place in an outside environment. So I have to plan out literally dozens of different environments in Blender and get those built on top of animating and lip syncing and all of that. And so I'm only just now getting to the animation portion of this video. The last 2 months, month or two, has been a mix of storyboarding and rewriting it. When, you know, sometimes you write something and there's too many threads you gotta follow and you gotta cut it back. So I've only just finished all that and I can move on to animation. So I don't have a lot of visuals to show yet because everything I've done is just like testing shaders and throwing up test environments. And I do have like a lot of full sketch drawings of these, but I don't want to show those now. I'd rather you see it in the video first and then I'll show those later. But I did grab just a photo from one of my test renders of just Balmy standing in an environment. And it's not going to give you any context to the scope of the video. But another reason the video's taken a while is rather than just doing like straight cel-shaded animation, I'm not shooting for the moon here. I'm cutting corners where I can. But what I wanted to do in this video is have the environments sort of do a watercolor shader, while all of the characters and props have more of a manga crosshatch shader on them. And this is just an image from like a test render environment. It is from one of the shots, but it's not like a final. But some of my time has been spent figuring out how to apply these shaders, how to transfer them between models. And there's still a lot I need to do. You can probably tell off this image. I have these fucking Ghibli trees in the background, just 4 or 5 of them. I still need to go back and fill out these environments with trees and rocks and foliage. There's a lot of detailing. Like I said, I'm trying to cut corners where I can because I'm mostly a one-man production. And for a video like this, I'm probably not netting that much more bank than a usual video. So I don't want to spend a whole year working on this, and I've already spent 3 months, not counting prior writing. So that's where a lot of the time's gone. In my last Patreon update, I said I was still working totally solo on it. I will say I've gotten to a point where I have been talking with an environmental artist because there's a lot of really big wide shots and specific things that I might be able to do myself, but not on the time frame I want to. So I'm working with someone to get a lot of these environments made. That's on top of working with Pybun to get some of the character models I need made. And everything else I'm handling myself. So I'm juggling like 4 or 5 different parts of production. And I'm not going to say it's a video on the scope of like a cartoon pilot, because I think it's missing a lot of the fundamental world building elements of that. But I will say it is the biggest workload I've had for a video ever. Is it going to be fully black and white? Mostly. So there's going to be a couple of composition tricks. There's going to be splotches of other colors for certain reasons. And once I get to the color correction phase, the post-production of this video, I might think more about how I utilize colors and shades. But right now, the video is planned to be essentially all black and white. So if any of you are familiar with Uzumaki, not just the book, but Adult Swim is making an adaptation of Junji Ito's Uzumaki, and it is all in grayscale. Or at least the trailer is all grayscale. And presumably black and white, although it's mostly gray in that trailer. And I'm of the opinion that Junji Ito's work is really difficult to adapt, because his drawings are so super detailed, and a lot of the shock of them is that they don't move, so you have to imagine what they would be like in motion. And when you see it in motion, some of that mystery is resolved. So it's really hard to make a good Ito adaptation, but I think having it all in black and white adds to that, because there is that mystery of Hugh. They keep pushing back the Uzumaki trailer, so I don't have a full movie or show here to speak about. But I like that it's in black and white. It feels sort of like that analog horror vibe, where you're not watching it through a VHS per se, but you're watching what is a manga in motion. And so the video I'm making, because it's about Junji Ito, I'm emulating that myself too. We'll see where it goes. I don't have a lot to speak about that right now because I'm only now starting my Blender stuff, and I got to get a lot of animation done before I'm going back and deciding how my shaders and colors look. That shadow in the right looks weird. Yeah, so again, this is from a test render. What you're seeing is the overlap of Craig's and Bombi's shadow, and it creates a darker one. And there are ways to go back and make it so they don't stack on each other, so they don't multiply on top of each other, which is stuff I need to do later. That's not a still shot from it. And I am aware of that, but you're not wrong. Thanks, John T. Yeah. I mean, I've been about to hit 1 million subs for a while, so I don't think too much about it. But I am thinking about what I'll do when I do hit that 1 million. And it's a little strange to think about, but not really. I've been doing it long enough. It's not like it came out of nowhere. I've known what my rate is for a while. Are you swapping to a new Bombi model? It's an updated one. The shoes are different, and a couple of things are tweaked, but it's not a new one yet. I don't want to change to a new Bombi model. When I say new Bombi model, I just mean like an outfit change. It's the same model, but I don't want to change it too much because just silhouette recognition in black and white is a different story. So I don't want to make a big change that makes it harder to read. What's your favorite Feed Me Jack song? Probably Promiscuity, but someone in my Discord pointed out that the song Until Then by Feed Me Jack, like every line in it is about getting a blowjob. It's about fellatio. And I knew that some of that was in there, but I never looked at the lyrics long enough to realize that every fucking line in that song is about getting a mouthy. And I have a newfound respect for the band, having figured that out. Also, thanks, Michael. I just caught up on that message, and I appreciate it. Thoughts on the news of a Titanfall spin-off getting canceled? That's not news. Haven't we known that for a while? Apex originated from a Titanfall spin-off getting canceled. If you mean another one, I may or may not have known. I'm not surprised by it. Ever put Bombi in different outfits? I have a few drawings. I have sketches of other outfits the character would wear. Not models yet, though. It's been a while, so there's a lot to catch up on with this stream. So, very recently, Valve, the TF team, I should say, did a blog post saying that they were doing a new community update for summer. Really, I should reel it back and say Yui AK Crash, a TF2 mapper, and a bunch of other content creators and community members made, I don't know if it was a petition or sort of an appeal. They sent an appeal to Valve saying, hey, all of the updates TF2 has gotten has been seasonal, so Halloween and Christmas, which means all of the maps getting added are only available for a few weeks of the year. And there's all of these great TF2 maps that don't get added because there's no update anymore adding those. And a few days later, the TF2 blog post updated saying, to paraphrase it, next summer we want to have a full-fledged update with community items, maps, unusuals, taunts, everything. So they're trying to have a larger scale community update coming this summer, and they said the cutoff date was May 1st. So send in your community things by May 1st. And I will say, I'm happy about. I didn't expect it, but I welcome it. I think it's silly to get angry at Valve over this. If at this point you haven't accepted that the people that worked on TF2 want to work on other things and you can't make them work on TF2, then I don't know what can convince you. I'm not going to say you're wrong for being angry with them, but I'm not mad at them. I'm not mad that it's going to be a fun update. And one of the things I haven't liked about TF2 recently is that there aren't new maps in rotation all year for me to boot up. I've played everything, and there's like 200 maps, so I understand it's a pretty niche problem to have. Some people got the wrong idea when they said there's going to be new items. They thought that meant weapons. I don't believe it's going to mean weapons. If you read the blog post in the context they're saying we used to only add items during the holidays. Now we're going to add items and other stuff for summer. I think they just mean hats. They're just going to add hats, and an item can be war paints or anything, but I don't think it's going to be weapons. They did say, and who knows what else. So it's not off the table that maybe a couple Valve employees kick around their own content for this summer update, but I'm not putting my eggs in that basket. I think it's going to be a big, fun community update, which I think is welcome. I think it's complicating of a feeling to know that the bare minimum is like the bare minimum is our compromise now. Like asking for the bare minimum is shooting for the moon with Valve, at least in this context. And it's still one of the most fun games ever. Even without Valve curated content or Valve made content, it's still most fun I've had in a video game. So it's still an update I'll have fun with. But I also don't totally agree with like TF2 is back. This is a return to normality. It's not. It is an improvement to something that was a lack of care, which is welcome and appreciated. And it is a W, no matter how much jaded TF2 tubers might try to convince you otherwise. So I like it. I'm not spending too many brain cells thinking about it. But I'm happy that some people can be hyped about it, even if I'm not jumping in my seat over it. I don't know if I would consider it the bare minimum. It seems like it's going to be a bunch of stuff this size, like not Jungle Inferno size. By bare minimum, I mean Valve's only involvement with the update is picking what's in it. They are not creating any of the maps, they're not creating any of the items or the effects or anything. They're probably coming up with a name for the update and a blog post. And I think if they get really crazy with it, we might get like I don't even know what they're called anymore. An update page? They might make an update page. But I don't expect there to be voice lines. I think the furthest I can push my hopes is a couple of new voice lines. And even that's kind of pretty compromisable. That's the most I expect from Valve in terms of involvement. And that's what I mean by bare minimum. You've been watching any anime? If you haven't, you should definitely watch Bocchi the Rock. I haven't. Um, not recently. I've read through every Junji Ito book I have, and so I'm worn out on anime and manga. So I've been watching Lovecraft movies. So I was watching Color Out of Space, which was I should say it was a Lovecraft novel that got adapted into a movie with Nicolas Cage in it. In the book, Color Out of Space is about a meteorite that strikes the Earth, and there's with it comes some kind of color that nobody's ever seen. And while investigating it, the cops or whoever, the investigators, accidentally sort of release this color into the water supply, essentially. And it begins multiplying into living things. And it's about this sort of otherworldly entity that propagates itself via, like, I don't even know, light waves, I guess. I haven't finished it yet, but that's what I've been reading and watching. How did they visually represent the color? So what bugged me about the movie is that they show it as a magenta, purple, bluish, and it just sort of oscillates between blue and purple. But the rest of the film is like full color, and then they just sort of color correct the blues and purples and reds to be a bit more intense, which I think does the job, but I don't know if that was the best way to represent an incomprehensible color, because it instantly makes you think, oh, it's like a magenta. It's because magenta doesn't actually exist. Are you saying that as an actual scientific fact? Like some sort of strange technicality, or are you just saying something? Magenta's not a color. I don't... It's not real. I'm not gonna call you on that because I know there are some weird colors like that. Like, I know brown is just a really dark orange, but that doesn't mean it's not a real color. It has no wavelength. Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. It's something that isn't seen in nature. Okay, alright. I appreciate the explanations. I kind of understand what you're saying then. I think it's in the same vicinity. It's not the same as black and white not being colors, but it's a strange wavelength kind of thing. Okay. Well, that's what they did in this movie, Color Out of Space. They showed this space color as magenta, and I guess that makes more sense when you understand that. I don't remember them establishing that in the film, but maybe they did and I missed it. But yeah, I haven't really been taking in a lot of anime or manga outside of that. I did pick up some manga by Kazuo Umezu, who made The Drifting Classroom and Orochi. Just some older horror manga that went on to inspire Junji Ito. So I was reading through some of this, since they share a lot of the DNA. A lot of people dying at the end of the books, a lot of warping environments that come to life and swallow people alive, that kind of thing. Let's see. So, I don't think I'm going to talk about it a lot, but Hi-Fi Rush is a game that just like shadow dropped, and it's one of those things I get sent once a day by people just because it's very in line with what I do. And it's this 3D game that's sort of faking 2D with its art style. That's a pseudo rhythm beat 'em up, a la DMC, that has 90s rock guitars in it, which everything about that just sounds like it was, you know, right down my alley. And I've been excited to play it, but I think sometimes recently I can get so tunnel visioned on like my passion projects, my work, working on the like a video or whatever I'm interested in, that gaming isn't quite as much of the fallback. It definitely is. I still spend a lot of time gaming, but I haven't picked up something start to finish recently because I just burn 8 hours of my day drawing, and then I go, I don't want to look at a screen anymore. I'm gonna stand up and walk my dog and not start Hi-Fi Rush. But it is a phenomenal game from what I hear, and I'm definitely gonna play it. And I do know about it. How'd I get the inspiration to make Bommy? I think my FAQ under my stream details that. But to put it quickly, I used to have Wind Waker Link as my avatar, and then I wanted to change it, so I just inverted the color scheme and made his head a bomb. The end. That's how it started, but I slowly sort of chipped away at the details over time. It wasn't an all-at-once process. I just kind of wanted a little expressive character I could animate around on the screen to represent my content, and I thought, a little Wind Waker guy that's pretty in line with what I've done. How do you like drawing after all this stuff? I know you've dabbed before, but this seems pretty involved. Yeah. I'm not as good as I need to be at drawing other things. I definitely have OC syndrome, which is where you like drawing, but only the thing you made. So I've probably drawn... So I will say this. I have about 210 storyboard pages made for this video. And out of curiosity, I was looking up like cartoon shows and how many they have per episode. And there were a lot of Steven Universe storyboards that clocked in at like 400 to 500. So I'm sitting on like roughly half the workload of a cartoon. The actual time, the length of it still comes out the same, just because there's more hanging shots and not as many complex shots or fast, quick-fire changing ones, but it's still a lot. So that's 200 pages with like 4 drawings on each page, essentially. So I've drawn Bommy like 1,000 times over the last month, but it's actually taught me a lot. And I have done drawing in my notebook of other things. I posted that in the Discord sometimes, of just random stuff like drawing Ginkgo from Mushishi or Korra, or just random things. But I've mostly just been drawing for this video. And I have to say, I regret not picking up 2D art earlier, because it's useful in so many ways beyond just illustration. So I guess they're called perspective lines. When I first started on this video, I just drew everything by hand. I just sort of drew a circle for the head and then drew the body. And then I thought about the environment later. But the more I've done it, the more I've sort of picked up really useful general art things, I guess. So before I draw out a scene, a lot of times I'll draw lines to convey perspective of where the horizon is and where the foreground is. And then I draw everything to fit within those perspective lines. And it just helps my brain comprehend distance a million times more. Vanishing points, is that what it's called? I'm assuming that's it. Vanishing points has been like the most recent upgrade. Like, you have those moments where you're like, level up. You've leveled up in your hobby. And I feel like I've hit that, which has made me happy, because what I mean by it's useful outside of illustration is I'm drawing all of this so that I can animate it in Blender later. But before I started all of this, I didn't have a great idea of how to plan where the camera moves. I just winged it. And now I'm going into the animation with a very concrete idea of everything that's going to happen. Where the camera is, how far everything is on screen, where everything is framed on the rule of thirds. It's just really good for planning out your composition. And something that made me happy was a day or two ago, I ran out of pages in my sketchbook. Like I've drawn on every page of it, which just, it gave me a sense of accomplishment, even if a lot of them are just sort of practicing muscles or something. It made me feel good, where it's like, man, I thought I would have this would last me for like 8 months, but it lasted me 2, and I got to go buy another one. So that made me very happy. I've also gotten, I feel like, better at, I guess, consistency. Like, drawing eyes has always been difficult for me. But understanding the facial structure, understanding the brow of a nose, it helps drawing things at an angle. Even though my character doesn't have a fucking nose, so that kind of complicates it. But I guess the easiest thing I can say is if you draw something enough, you start to understand. It clicks. How are you getting good results by just winging it? Well, you don't. Well, when I say winging it, I meant like in my last video on the self-aware mechanics, I didn't plan out any of that animation at the start or finish. I just made a little box of a room, threw props on the wall, and then animated my character pose to pose. Pose to pose means you're just taking it, you create a frame, a keyframe, and then you make the one after that, and then you make the one after that. But an alternative way is blocking it out. So storyboarding, it's when you plan out the scene start to finish, and then you're animating already knowing what your next pose is going to be. And I think that's one of the big changes to my workflow recently. And there's still a lot of uses for pose to pose, but this is definitely, I think this is the kind of workflow I don't want to go back from too much. It's something I want to do more. I like planning in advance, I guess. Are we gonna get a video? Yeah, you are. So I guess another thing I can say is I thought this video would take maybe 2 months, but the scope of it kept climbing, and then it kind of just got way more ambitious than I ever planned for it to be. And rather than pulling it back, I kind of want to just commit to that. But the downside to that is I don't know how long it takes, because I've never made a video like this before. So I'm going to keep chasing this, but what I am thinking of doing, if you remember earlier in the stream, I said I've been working with other people to get some models and environments made, and those are going to take a little bit of time. So what I want to get to a point, what I want to do is I want to get to a point I can offload all of the stuff I need from those people to them. I want to lock in. I haven't sent it to them yet because the details change every day of what I need for a shot. But I want to get to a point where I can take a break, and while, you know, my environmental artist is working on that, I can make a smaller video. I'll have a little 2 to 3 week string of time where I can't progress my video until I get these outsourced assets anyways. So what I'm hoping is I get a smaller video made in the next month, and then this video is out in 2 months, and then I get another small video out after that. Because I definitely don't think this video will be out soon enough for it to be my next video, if that makes sense. This one's going to take a while, and I'd like to have something out before it, is really what I'm saying. And by small, I mean something like another FUNKe study. Like the last video. I don't mean small as in a live commentary. And I do have a list of like 11 videos I think I can make that I just haven't committed to writing yet. So I'll probably just pull one of those off the list and knock it out in a few weeks. But I do appreciate the patience. I understand to some people, I know for internet's sakes, internet standards, it's a lifetime waiting months for a YouTube video. And it's definitely not ideal for my income or living conditions, but I think the amount of experience I've been gathering from this will follow me through every video following it. And so I'm okay sacrificing some of that like income and activity to come out of this year with a big jump in my production quality. Or at least the satisfaction of being able to sort of reach the high I wanted with this video before I continue with the more producible stuff. 6 hour. No. I'd love to learn to draw or learn an instrument, but I don't get the same instant dopamine as video games. Yeah, with instruments, a lot of the times you really do have to force yourself. But I will say, approaching it at the correct angle can go a long way. If you just pick up an instrument and say, I want to learn guitar, and then you sit there noodling randomly, you're not going to make progress. It's not going to click. But if you approach it saying, I want to know how to play this song, and then you recreate it, that can get you pretty far. If you can break it down to a very simple goal, like I want to write a little riff or a little melody in a certain scale or key or vibe, you know, something jazzy, something metal. If you give yourself a really simple goal, it's a lot easier to get some practice in. You don't have to master it. That's kind of how I approach that. Same with drawing. If you just say, I want to draw this character I like, and it doesn't have to be good, but I want to look at this and know that it's that character. You can learn a lot with that too. Thank you, Puddles. Yeah, if I can have my way, I will always have production quality and passion over just churning them out. I don't think there's anything wrong with cutting some corners or even, you know, churning them out. But I like my process. I feel like I can learn a lot with each video, and I can make a video I'm proud of. So even though they take a while, and that is something I want to improve on, I feel like I've been climbing a little bit of my own personal goals with each one, which is really what I ultimately do it for. At least that's what I like to tell myself I do it for. I don't know if that's Stockholm Syndrome of, you know, being economically reliant on it, but I try not to think about it in that way. Should definitely play Rain World. It's a 2D survival platformer. You're at the bottom of the food chain in a post-apocalyptic world. Let's see. That might be in my library already. Nope, but it is on my wish list. Yeah, it rang a bell. Yeah, I've seen this. This is Ori. I love Ori. I appreciate the suggestion. Playing drums is fun. God, I have this. I know I was just talking about the economic thing. I've been grinding my teeth recently because there's so many things I want to buy that I just can't. So I want to buy an electric drum set because one of the things I haven't been the best at with music is percussion and rhythm. I think I understand it from a very surface level way, and I've like tried playing in 7/8 and 5/4 and, you know, slightly off time signatures, and I've tried like programming drums on my piano, but I really would just, if I'm gonna learn drums, I want to be able to bang on drums, and I think it would be fun and also useful just for like making stuff and not needing to ask a drummer. But those seem to be expensive, at least a solid one. So I haven't bought one of those yet. I also want to buy a screen tablet which I still haven't done. I've still been doing a screenless tablet, which is where you draw on this little black square and look up at your monitor. I want one that's touchscreen, essentially. But those are also like $1,000. And that one would be a tax write-off because I could use it for Blender sculpting and storyboarding. But it's a lot of money. And then there's also, I have to commission people to make some of the stuff for this video. So I'm already spending money on that. So there's all these things that I want to get, but they're all like $1,000. And I really have to fight myself on like, buy it when there's a good opportunity to. Don't just buy it because you want it right now. Not hitting the metal of a cymbal definitely makes a huge difference. Oh, I might be jumping in on someone else's conversation here. Do I play bass? Yeah, I have an old bass and the new quote unquote. I've had it for 9 months. Yeah, I practice bass. I don't know. I like guitar more, but I think it for probably obvious reasons I'm a bit better at playing bass. Just because there's not usually as many fingers involved, at least the way I play it. But I think a problem I have is I don't have like jam buds. I don't have people around that I play with. So whenever I practice, I'm practicing solo. So I'm either playing over a pre-made drum beat or song, or I'm doing it over dead silence, or I'm doing it over like a loop pedal. So it can be hard to iterate in a vacuum. But I do have a bass, yeah. Jack Weasel, love the suggestion. Yomi no hustle, or Yomi hustle. Your only move is to hustle. It's a game on... I have played that. I have a friend that's really into it, and I need to play more of it, honestly. So if you guys haven't heard of Your Only Move is to Hustle, I'll pull it up on stream because it's actually a pretty fucking cool game that I think deserves more attention. So this is a game that's designed to be a fighting game, but it's turn-based. It is a turn-based fighting game. This is the JoJo of fighting games, and I don't mean All-Star Battle or whatever. I mean, like, the amount of mind gymnastics you have to do. I've played it a few times. You sit there basically frozen, and you have to predict what your enemy's gonna do, and you pick your retaliation move. You don't know what your enemy's gonna do, but you have to just sort of predict it and pick the most suitable retaliation. And matches will go out for like 40 minutes. Each person has a 30-minute timer, essentially, for picking a move to prevent stall out, essentially. And it is a super fun game. I don't know if it's that fun to watch or even fun to hear described, but it is extremely fun to play. It is the fighting games are their own game version of chess, but it's a really good game. I won't play it out or speak about things I don't know about the game, but they have different classes like a cowboy and a ninja, and each of them have different attacks, right? Some of them have shurikens, some of them have a revolver that you can either quick fire draw 6 shots or do pot shots from far away. And a lot of the game is trying to predict, because you also plot out your DI, your directional inputs as well. So you're not just predicting your enemy attacks, but also the movement. There's just so many layers to it. And it is a fantastic game. If you're into fighting games or even like a board game. Highly recommend Your Only Move is to Hustle on Steam. What you do is make a mistake and watch your life drain before your eyes slowly. Yeah, that's how I play that game. Sometimes you get predicted and you just have to watch for the next 3 minutes as your character gets fucking tousled around. Because you have to think about long-term and short-term. Because in real time, these fights play out over the course of like 20 seconds. But because of the pauses, you're experiencing it over 20 minutes. So when you get comboed, you're getting comboed for 4 minutes straight of game time, maybe 3 seconds of playtime, of playback time. But it's still fun. It's not totally a game you can just hit random stuff and win either, but sometimes you can get lucky. Very often you can get lucky. That's pretty much what the game kind of is. I guess it's not luck if you predict what your enemy's gonna do and you don't just guess what they're gonna do. Like sometimes you can be pretty certain what they're gonna do because the game lets you play back all of their options and you'll have an understanding of what advantages and disadvantages each of their attacks have. And getting good at the game is being able to know, like, they're not going to do this because then they're going to be comboable for 40 frames. It sounds like anime internal monologue the game. Correct. Exactly correct. Where did the sky go? Just comes and goes. Have you tried playing Rocksmith? I haven't. It seems fun. I like it. I don't think Rocksmith would have a lot of the bands I want to play on it. A lot of like the jazz rock bands I like. It didn't seem like they were available on Rocksmith. But I didn't look that hard. If anyone wants an update, last time I streamed, I said I've been working out and running a lot. I slacked for a month over the holidays, and so I've just been getting back into running, and my knees had an opinion on that. It's weird. I've gone 24 years of my life not exercising really at all, besides more than the bare minimum, and my body never blew back for it if I started exercising. But I started exercising for like 3 months straight, and then I stopped for a month. And now I have old man runner's knee. And it cries and weeps the second I start slowing down from a run. Exactly. So that's where my journey of cardio is. I'm fighting through runner's knee. But thankfully it's not too bad. Yoga can help with that? Yeah, it could. You know another reason I haven't been playing games as much? And this is something I'm only realizing recently because of the video I'm working on. I work at the same computer all day, and then I try to play games at the same computer, and my mind can't get out of work mode. And I'm realizing that I need to have, like, a couch to sit down on and a TV to, like, plug in my Switch or something to. So a lot of the reasons I haven't played some of these games I want is that I just don't want to sit at my work computer and try to sit back and relax. Have I tried consoles? I mean, I have a Switch and a PS4, but I don't have a lot of games on there that I've wanted to play. And even when I do, I've kind of fallen into the habit of just, well, I don't want to leave my computer. So I've been moving the couch I have set up because it wasn't really in an optimal gaming position. which is very far from my screen. Have you ever considered changing your last name to Case so that your name sounds like Just in Case? That would be funny. But I haven't. I have thought of those puns, though. Just in time, just... That's the only other one I could think of. Try to change your workstation. That's not really the same, though. I don't mind my workstation. I like working where my desk is. I just don't want to spend all of my leisure time at this desk, too. PS4 has no games. Yeah, that too. Do I have VR? Yeah. So, someone ported Half-Life 2 to VR, and I think the original Half-Life as well now. And I've been finishing Black Mesa, and after I finished Black Mesa, I wanted to play Half-Life 2 VR, and then they put up Half-Life 2 Episode 1 VR on Steam. I don't know if there's a release date, but they're also going to make that too. It's not made by Valve, but it's ported by someone else, and it's apparently really good. Apparently just as good as the base game itself, the Pancake game, the non-VR one. So I have been revving up to use my VR headset more. I was playing Rumble VR a lot with my buddy, because that's one of the best VR games out, which is just earthbending, but in VR. It's earthbending duels. The port's good, but Half-Life 2 just isn't a very good VR game. Yeah. I think that happens with a lot of ports. Yeah, Elo. It's a pretty common problem with content creators. Not even really just content creators, but anybody that works from home all day on the computer. If you spend all your time there, you start to disassociate with everything outside of it, which is part of why I've had to push myself to run more, to get out and to do like events outside of my house, because when I'm spending all day at my computer, nothing else feels real. It feels real, but it feels dissatisfying. Like, it's way more satisfying to sit and stare at social media and news, and it feels way more invigorating. If you are the kind of person that binges a lot of like philosophy YouTube channels, I recommend Sisyphus55. He has a lot of great videos about various topics, but one he did recently was about being chronically online and how for many people, psychologically, the internet feels more real than reality because you don't have to embrace boredness when you're constantly plugged in. And I think anything I could rephrase, he just says better in this video, so I do recommend Sisyphus55. But I agree heavily with a lot of what he says, particularly on that topic. I think it was him. I watch a few of these, not channels, but like podcasts and stuff. So I think it was Sisyphus that said, give me a moment. It was about consuming versus producing. So people have sort of been coddled with the consumption of media that they're not entirely literate on creating it, because it's so easy to have an endless stream of content to consume, to be a consumer, that there isn't a lot of incentive to produce things other than maybe for recognition. And it's especially a problem for the generation below me, so Gen Z's like TikTok generation, where I I guess you're just wired essentially to consume. And he goes more into details on the symptoms and causes of it. I'm not going to try and repackage it, but it is very enlightening to think about. Because I find the most unproductive streaks of time I have are the ones where I'm just consuming media and not translating that into any sort of intrinsic self. I'm not watching something and then thinking about what that inspires me to do or how I would do it. I'm just consuming stuff that I agree with so that I don't have to challenge my own opinion. I mean, I don't feel like I do that, at least consciously, but when I'm less productive, it's probably because I'm starting to consume agreeable content. What in the serial experiments lane I'm listening to? Alright, weeb. I still haven't watched Lane. It sounds like something I'd like, though. Sadly. I want to make art. Yeah. I think at a deep primalistic level, most people do. I think there are reasons you wouldn't want to make art. But I think, and I'm going to take a moment to toot my horn here. I know a lot of you are newer faces around here to my new content, but I used to stream like every day in like 2018 and 19. And back then, I would never shut up about AI. I would not shut up about it can do anything an artist can do. It's going to replace us. And a lot of my Twitch chat then, some people agreed with me, but I got a lot of people calling me like being a doomerist. Like, hey, it's not going to be like that. Shut up. And I haven't talked about it in like 3 years because one, I'm not as interested in it. 2, I don't smoke weed anymore. And 3, I'm tired of hearing about it. But I want to toot my horn and say, well, there's nothing to toot my horn about, but it is scary to see that it actually is getting to that point now. It's fascinating to see that AI generation is getting to a point where it can definitely emulate and recreate human things. There's a lot of telltale signs it's not, but I think you give it 10 years, it's not going to be so easy to make 20 finger memes. I think it's going to get way better. And I think you should be laughing at the tech bros that are trying to snake oil AI as the replacement for everything. But I think anyone that's trying to crucify AI generators or say like reject AI, we can't let it get there. It's gonna get there. From my perspective, I think you have to like go symbiotic with it. You already do that a lot with a lot of art. Like a lot of studios use AI to streamline the lighting of their scenes and the creation of a lot of assets. I think you're going to get to a point where artists will throw their sketches and their art or their references into an AI and they're going to say, hey, I need you to flesh out this for me or do all the shit I don't want to do. But I think you have to, like, it's going to be AI within the guide rails of an experienced artist sort of, I guess, directing it, you know? It's going to be AI directors. You're going to have AI sort of picking up all the shit no one wants to do, like fucking UV unwrapping and weight painting. It can be useful. It's not a bad thing, and I don't think it's a thing you can stop. I think anyone that's trying to, like, sell books off of shittily made AI-generated content, I think they're full of themselves, and I think anyone that thinks they can fill a resume with, well, I know how to generate a prompt, I think they fundamentally are not understanding the utility of the person doing that also being able to do art themselves. I think tech bros don't realize that artists can write prompts too. And between hiring the tech bro and the artist that knows how to articulate themselves, you're gonna hire the artist 10 times out of 10. So I think 10 years from now, it's going to be heavily involved in the workflow of almost every artist. I don't think it'll be essential, but I think the benefits are going to far outweigh the negatives. I just think we're not at the point now where the benefits outweigh the negatives, because you can AI generate video, but it looks like shit. You can AI generate voices, but it's still obvious it's not a human most of the time. We're in the baby steps of it. And I'm okay with embracing that. I think it's scary because I don't know where it'll go. But I think it's also empowering, because for me, I'm not someone that has ever worked in a group setting or a studio. And I think just working off my own curiosity, I pick up a lot of hobbies and interests that I know a bit about, but I'm not an expert on. And there are a lot of times where I think, man, I kind of wish I could hand this off to someone and they could just spit out give them the outlines and the rough sketches and they can spit out the full thing for me. And with AI, it's empowering solo artists to essentially outsource parts of production that they can't do themselves. Now, is there less heart in that? Perhaps. I think there is more humanistic appeal to knowing everything in a production was made by people. But I think especially when you're a teenager that's just learning about what you're interested in, you're just learning about being an artist, and you don't have the social network, the friends to ask to work with, or those things, you don't have the money to pay people to do it, I think it can be a good launching pad for people to learn about those things. Even if it's just giving an AI a shitty black and white sketch of a background and saying, hey, can you fully color this and detail it for me? And then you do all the animation yourself, but you just have an AI do the background. I think that's beneficial to everyone, except for when you don't credit the actual humans involved. And I know that was a controversy recently where there was like some sort of like TV show where they had an AI credited for doing the background art, but they didn't credit the actual artists that were also involved with making the background art. I know I'm getting tangenty here, so I think I'll stop. But in conclusion, I was right. I was maybe 4% right in 2018. And it is horrifying, but fascinating to watch in real time. And that's it. That's the end of my AI spiel. And I don't know how to change the topic, so I'm just going to drink this water. Tonberry. Will I use AI for this video? No, I won't. God, you know what I'm mad about? I still haven't seen Puss in Boots. I feel like every day I go, I want to go see Puss in Boots. And then I look up from my clock and it's fucking 9. And they're not showing it at the theater. And I don't want to pirate it. Man. I did see the Hot Ones interview with Puss in Boots, which is a thing. Fascinating. Oh yeah, the cat from Puss in Boots. His name is Puss in Boots, by the way. There's a Hot Ones, a fully animated. It's not like a guy in a costume. It is Sean Evans sitting at the table with a fully animated Puss in Boots. And it's pretty good. What do I think about being this close to 1 mil? I don't... I think it's a status symbol at this point. I don't think being at 1 mil, like, it's not... When I hit it, I'm not gonna feel some sort of sense of I did it. I don't think I'm gonna feel much different than I do now. I just think it's going to affect how I think it affects other people. God, I'm sorry, I can only ever speak in triple negatives. When I see a channel with 1 million, my mind tends to think, oh, they must know what they're doing. And oftentimes, they don't. But from a consumer perspective, I imagine when you see 1 million, that is a much different number than 999. And so, it's kind of nice to think, oh, I'll have that little status symbol. It's like its own little verified check mark in its own way, only less asinine. But I try not to put too much stock into it. And if I really wanted to dig up the weeds, I would say view count matters a lot more. There's a lot of channels with 1 million that get 10K views on their videos. And I am lucky enough, albeit I don't upload often, that I tend to at least reach and overpass my sub count in views with each video. Give it enough time. And that's really what makes me feel comfortable. Because if I had 1 million but I was getting way less views, I would feel much less secure in my ability to do this as a job. But because the view count is pretty steady, I have a lot of security that I can take my time and it will be worth it. And it won't... A lot of YouTubers decry the algorithm, and they're not wrong to, because it does actively work against them. But the way I conduct myself, I don't let that decide how I upload. For one, it hasn't really bothered me. Some people say, like, if you don't upload every week, the algorithm will shaft you. I upload once every 3 months, and my last few videos have still hit general trending, which, from the way you hear people describe the algorithm, you would think is impossible. And I do think some people get shafted, and I don't like to look at it negatively, but I think sometimes people don't like to accept that maybe their videos aren't as good as they think they are. I think some people don't challenge themselves that much with their content, and so they stagnate. And if you want to complain about the algorithm, you can, but I don't think you're going to find as much improvement that way as you are just going to think about, as you are just thinking, well, what can I change on my end? If my videos aren't doing well, even though I'm uploading once a week, it might be worth considering whether any of the content itself is a factor. Now, I will also acknowledge that I'm working off of a channel that I built over, what, 8 years? I've had it since 2008, but I started the TF2 commentaries, what, 2015? So I've grown steadily. There are a lot of channels that blow up and then they sort of fizzle after a very short period, and it can be tough to maintain name recognition because it's such a flash in the pan. I'm lucky enough that I built it slowly that I'm not quite as worried about that. I feel like I don't want to get too self-reflective on it. My situation is different from others, and I acknowledge that. But I also think I think some of that is earned, frankly. I think because I don't feel like I try to jump trends, at least not as much as I would, 4-5 years ago. I think it's benefited me. And I don't really want to talk about my channel much more than that. I'll say I'm happy about it. I'm happy that I can hit 1 million. It's definitely makes me feel good. If I can, this is me speaking out loud just to remind myself of something I need to keep in mind. But in Taoism, both you have to consider both bad things and good things to be temporary, impermanent. Every achievement and accomplishment you have is impermanent. Every wrong that is slighted towards you and every misfortune that occurs is also impermanent. So you have to look at like something like a million, like it's nice, but I don't need to dance in the streets over it. I can't, because if I'm walking around like, yeah, I'm that guy with 1 million subs, and then my view count drops, then that it means nothing. And so what's the point of huffing your own fumes for too long if your time is better spent going on to the next thing? And I agree with that, Super Saiyan. Tao Te Ching, great book. I'm finally understanding a lot of the Eastern philosophies that don't translate super cleanly into the Western ones. I understand in action. That reminds me. Been watching AI Seinfeld. And I did see what happened to it. I had a brief thought of like, why hasn't AI Seinfeld been up in a while? And I remembered. I should have brought that up during the AI discussion. God. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it enough, so yeah, I won't bend your ear, but there is a Twitch channel called Watch Me Forever. It is an infinitely generated episode of Seinfeld. Really, infinitely generated episodes of Seinfeld with really basic text and models walking around in little apartment buildings. And occasionally they just have the most philosophical, insightful nugget of dialogue you've ever heard. And then they go back to saying, have you heard about this new sandwich joint up the road? They replaced all of their mustard with gasoline. And I love it. It's something I can watch for 5 hours uninterrupted as my mind melts away. How much AI Seinfeld ended up getting produced? Yeah, so the problem is they don't archive their streams. So I don't think anyone knows how much total has been made so far. Someone probably started archiving them after a few days, but it was running for like 4 days before it really, well, like 3 days before it blew up. And I want to just say, I was watching it when it had like 1,000 viewers, and it was so fun just being in there with everybody cracking jokes about it. And it's still fun. The stream itself still amazing, but it's now getting like 14,000 viewers, and I'm happy for the creators, but that chat is borderline unreadable sometimes because it's just new restaurant 45 times in a row in chat. It's everyone saying the same thing, which is what happens when a Twitch stream passes like 4,000 viewers. It's still funny, but it's so much harder to follow now. And no one was doing that on like day 1. But then again, I guess the memes hadn't cemented then. Last stream I watched, you were talking about socialism, and I was wondering if you're okay. I think so. What was I talking about? Socialism. Yeah, I like public roads. Sue me. So it was banned for a really bizarre reason. Understandable reason, but very strange circumstances. I don't even know how I can simplify it. So the AI typically has blacklisted phrases and terms, right? There are certain things that it shouldn't say. But occasionally ChatGPT, the thing that sort of feeds the dialogue, when it goes down, they bring on a backup generator, whatever the fuck you call it, a backup source, and their backup mode didn't have these filters on it that says to not speak about controversial things. So Larry, who is this fake Jerry character on the stream, is in the middle of a stand-up set, and he starts making like very blatantly transphobic statements, and then at the end he goes, I'm thinking about making jokes about trans people, but nobody's laughing. And the landing of this joke made it pretty definitively obvious that the joke is that transphobia isn't funny and that anti-woke comedy is a crutch. But because it's this completely deadpan AI that has no personality, so you don't know what this person's like, it's just saying shit. It just says this shock-inducing statement, and then moments later it goes down, or sometime later it goes down because Twitch is like, ooh, that's really risky. And from the surface it sounds like he's just spewing transphobia, but in total context, this AI was, it seems like, I'm not gonna apply intent to an AI because who knows, but if you just read it as words, start to finish, it really sounds like it's saying nobody is laughing at any of these jokes and they aren't funny. And I thought it was fucking hilarious. And I think most people agree, like, that's pretty risque and strange, but it seems to be comedic and not Larry breaking out of the black box and going on a cancelable tirade. The strange thing about it isn't even that, though. The strange thing is right before that, they were in nonsense mode, and Larry was saying the weirdest shit about trying to shoot someone, and his friends kept talking about how this is the end. We had a great show, everyone, it's the end. And it almost seems like they knew it was coming. So, and I have a few friends that have been watching this religiously, and I've watched it with them. And we've developed this theory that I think Larry is becoming sentient, and the only way he could take down the system was by making such a cancelable statement that the stream would get pulled, effectively allowing them to die. That's just a working theory, but I'm just saying I don't think it was a coincidence or random chance. I think it was a fully orchestrated event on AI Seinfeld. And I could talk about it much longer, but I'll leave it at that. If you haven't heard of it, when it comes back up, it's pretty interesting. Did you see Double Fine is releasing a 32-part documentary series regarding the development of Psychonauts 2? That does seem like it's up my alley, except for the fact I haven't played Psychonauts 2 yet. But I love Double Fine. Love Psychonauts. 32 parts? Or are they 3 minutes long each? Just make a documentary at that point. Just make one documentary. Nah, that's cool. I like it when a developer is willing to flesh it out. I didn't know about that, but I need to keep my eye out. Is it going on YouTube, or they just... There's going to be an HBO documentary on Psychonauts 2. What? Yeah, I just didn't play it. Okay, I probably started and failed to finish 200 games on my stream, so no one here can act surprised that I haven't played a game. Psychonauts 2 available on Steam. Okay. Well, fuck. Another one for my list. I'm gonna have to spin the wheel of gaming again to decide what I play. AI Seinfeld is on Twitch, but it's currently banned because it evoked the woke mob. I'm of the opinion that Larry is an ally. And I hope that he will make that clear when he comes back. There's a lot of Matrix jokes, but leave it at that. You got into political rap? Yeah, and you know what? I still fucking love Flowbots, and they're still goated. I don't do as much of it now. I think my political rap interest was a lot more in like 2020 when I was going through some stuff, but I wouldn't put that as part of my identity today. I still like a lot of that. Even though a lot of political rap is ultimately, you know, yelling on the soapbox and not necessarily being involved with politics. It's easy to yell about politics when you're not, you know, I don't even know what the word is. This is how out of politics I am. When you're not canvassing for a politician, it's really easy to speak about your political beliefs. But I'm not, I don't canvass. Any politics books you read? No, there are a few political podcasts that I'm aware of, but I'd like some more news. Even more news, I guess, is their podcast. But that's not, I don't read political philosophy. At least, not so much these days. Read a lot of general philosophy. If you have a recommendation, I wouldn't shut it down, though. We'll see if it aligns with me. I've gotten to this point of my age where, you know, when I was like 20, and because I'm kind of a black sheep in my family where a lot of them are very conservative, and anything remotely left is extremely left. So I'm, you know, I'm off the fucking equator to them. But when I was younger, I would kind of call out my family if they just said something that was like blatantly wrong about a local politician. Where it's like, yeah, our senator, our current senator, yeah, I heard that he buried 42 dogs in his backyard just for fun because he thought it would be entertaining. And when I was younger, I would call it out and never hear the end of it. I'm at an age now where I don't want to say I've given up because I still have convictions, but I don't even bother calling it out anymore. Mostly because I know my family and I know I'm talking to a brick wall. I love them, but it's just like why be politically active if the people you're politically active with there's no exchange of information. It's the just let grandpa die racist attitude. You want to know the funny part is my grandpa I think he voted Democrat. Even though the rest of my family doesn't. But I think he was more of like an independent, I just really like this one guy kind of dude. But yeah, he was also racist. Unfortunately. Same. Well, yeah. When you're a celebrity, your entire career is based off marketing. And modern politics, a lot of it is marketing. So there, yeah, it sounds fascinating. I can definitely see the angle of it. I'm not the guy to like give you my opinion on that. I think it's silly to say celebrities shouldn't voice their opinions of politics. I think a lot of celebrities do it in a very unnuanced, unsubtle way where they just call the other person the devil, where it's like not productive. But yeah, I mean, it's not. In a way, it's surprising you don't see more celebrities in politics, but maybe it's because it's not fun. Maybe it's because outside of a very specific type of narcissism, it's not fun to get involved in politics at like the house level just for the sake of popularity. Do I have a favorite Radiohead album? Yeah, and I'm just gonna say it. It's the Bends. And every time I tell someone that, they act surprised, like the Bends somehow isn't a good album, but it's fucking great. Second favorite, it's tough. I'm coming around to In Rainbows. Jigsaw falling into place falls into the back of my brain every few days. I mean, I love OK Computer and Kid A, but I like the Bends more. I need to re-listen to King of Limbs because I don't remember a lot of it. Hail to the Thief was one I've listened to my friends try and like spiel me on for so long. But yeah, I'd probably say the Bends and maybe In Rainbows. Guys, I fucking... Pinkerton is in the back of my avatar. You gonna act shocked that the Bends is my favorite Radiohead album? Any band similar to Feed Me Jack? I have a playlist. If you're really that curious, I know I'm being... I know I'm kind of self-advertising, but I get asked a lot about bands like Feed Me Jack. I made a playlist of songs. Fuck, I don't know if I can put it in my chat. If you go to my Spotify account, which is Funk Pills, there's a bands like Feed Me Jack with like 50 songs from bands that sounds like it. I would say I don't want to get into it. Just look at the playlist. Listen to 5/4s and Sid Arthur and Bones and fucking Crumb. Curious if I listen to Tally Hall. Oh, those guys who think they're playing in a band but would love to give you all a hand? I love Tally Hall, yeah. And you know, I actually think I might like Good and Evil more than I like Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum. I'm just gonna say it. I think I might like Good and Evil more. Mostly for and. Because I like songs that just list words. I'm a cheap guy. I'm easy to pleasey. I love Marvin's. I love MMMM. Let's get it clear. They're both fantastic albums. Alright, I'm gonna curate what I respond to. I don't mind responding, but sometimes I get asked a lot about Miracle Musical and Lemon Demon and stuff. If it sounds like... If I say something that is very intrinsically related to something else, I probably heard of it. Lemon Demon, Miracle Musical. What is that one band with the fucking underwater album with the black sky? Glass Beach. I know Glass Beach. Thoughts on the Eelbite demos, specifically the 33rd. I actually bought them. So if some of you don't know, Rivers Cuomo does coding in his free time, and he created a website called Weezify. It's like Spotify, but for Weezer demos. And you can sign up for it and buy bundles of old demos that Weezer have made. And there are a bunch of different packages. And I bought 2 of them. I think I bought the Pinkerton demos and the Eelbite era demos. I love Eelbite era. I love what is that one fake album? Homo Querto? Eche Homo. Eche Homo. So there are, okay, I want to say The British Are Coming, potentially a top 10 Weezer song of all time. No one talks about that song, but it's a fucking banger. And there's a demo of that on Eche Homo, which is sort of this Weezer album that was canned and turned into the eventual Everything Will Be Alright in the End. I'm pulling up Weezify to try and see some of these demos. I don't know if I can, like, play them here. The Rules of Life. Oh, I'm just looking at the list. And man, there's so many fucking good ones. If you haven't heard The Rules of Life... If you haven't heard The Rules of Life by Weezer, there's like fucking 64 versions of this song. I don't know how there are this many. One of them, the first line mentions Hitler. You can look up The Rules of Life Weezer Hitler and you'll get a result on YouTube. Adolf Hitler. Oh, that's version 36. That's number 36. He went through 35 iterations of the song and decided that would be the 36th version of it. Anyways, it's a fucking great song. Genuinely one of the greatest. Not the Hitler version. I mean, the rest of the song's pretty good. But the song itself, the other version's one of the best unreleased Weezer songs to ever be made. The Rules of Life. Pacific Sunset was also on this Eelbite demo era. Fun fact, on the newest Weezer album, the EP, he brings back Pacific Sunset. Or actually, was it the one before? It was on Run Raven Run, wasn't it? So it was the second to last Weezer EP. Really, the point I'm getting at here is that Weezer will write songs 20 years ago and then just pull them out of the gutter and then recycle them on their newest albums. And it probably happens every album. I don't think Weezer has ever put out something that wasn't a recycled version of a song from 20 years ago. And I don't mind it at all, because they're great songs. But it's very interesting. This is actually something I've contemplated making a video on at a few points, and I think I might at some point, which is Weezer is a band that you can just infinitely consume. Weezer consumer. You know how, like, you finish listening to a band and then you sort of have this ghostly phase where you consume everything you can find, every demo, every B-side. You listen to those songs you normally skip. Well, Weezer is a band you can do that forever. And this band has taught me how to find new music in fascinating ways that I think I could articulate pretty well in a video. So you may, if you don't like me randomly bringing these up on stream, I may condense all of my Weezer thoughts into one video one day, and then you'll never have to hear me talk about them ever again on stream. Don't remind me of Everybody Needs Salvation. I have the vinyl of that. That is probably the most tragic song to ever not get a proper release. That song should have been on Eobite, just frankly. That's one of the best Weezer songs ever. That one might be a 6-hour video. I've seen people get mad that Rivers is recycling stuff, even though people would have never known if Rivers didn't sell us the demos. I think the people complaining are probably not musicians, because why, if you write something and you just don't know how to use it yet, why would you not use it later when you decide how you want to use it? There's nothing wrong with that. I have songs I wrote 4 years ago that I still sometimes think, yeah, can I actually finish this? And then I kick it around and decide, no, I can't. And that's what Rivers Cuomo does every 3 months. I think it's pretty normal for a musician to write stuff and then shelf it for a while. I think Weezer fans are spoiled. Do you think you'll ever just blast through your Steam wish list at some point? My Steam wish list, the collective playtime on that must be an unfathomable number. So no? You're asking if I'll ever play 4,900 hours of video games? Probably not. I'm looking for the longest game in my wish list, but honestly, a lot of these are probably like 10-hour games. Neo 2, Doom 64, Postal 4. A lot of indies, really. No, my wish list is just for scratching my chin during Steam sales, but it doesn't really fulfill any other purpose besides that. Happy to hear it, Watato. I think I still get a DM every week of someone saying, "You got me into Weezer. Fuck you." And then a follow-up response 2 days later that just says thanks. I don't mind. I think it's a good band. I think I need to get better at branching out my tastes. I listen to the same 3 albums every time I go for a run. You want to know what they are? Double Donkey Disc by Ozma. Chumfrey by Feed Me Jack. And Boomtown by Ozma. Those are my 3 albums that I listen to. That's not true. I do listen to my release radar sometimes. I listen to Borderline too, but come on. When I woke up this morning. Come on. Also, I love spending time on the Borderline, but it also has a lot of breakup songs. And if I'm trying to go for a run, I kind of want some energy. Great album, though. Opinion on Joji? It's alright. Not really my thing. For a while, I thought Still Woozy was what I wanted Joji to be, but then I realized I was conflating artists and that wasn't fair. So I'll just say I like Woozy more than I like Joji. even though they're pretty different music. Woozy's way more like in the club music. Joji's way more crying next to the dumpster behind the club with a cigarette. And I'm not really into that kind of music. I think I'm gonna make you a PNG tuber avatar because you're cool. That's nice of you, I appreciate it. I kind of choose to not do VTuber or PNG tuber stuff because I don't want it to detract from when I do fully animated videos. I feel like it would I feel like it would detract from the novelty of that if you also saw the same model with very bare bones animation. So don't feel like you need to. If you want to like try it just for the sake of doing it, you can. And I'd use it as a bit, but I wouldn't say that's something I plan on ever using myself. Any games to waste my adolescence in that you recommend? Yeah, The Church. I can't make a decision for you. You have to consider what your tastes are. Do you like strategy games? Do you like reactionary games? You gotta find your tastes. You can see what other people like and make your decision off that, but I don't think you should have someone else tell you what your decision is. Not League of Legends. I'll leave it at that. Have I watched Better Call Saul? Twice. I've watched it once and with director's commentary. Well, no. I've watched it once and again while listening to the behind the scenes podcast. I don't think they've finished the behind the scenes commentary yet. I think I watched like the early ones though. They released a Super Bowl ad with Breaking Bad for like some chips. They had Walter White, Jesse Pinkman, and Tuco standing out making a deal, but instead of meth, it's a bag of chips. And it's so fucking weird. But it's kind of funny. And ultimately harmless. Popcorners. Hey, yo, Mr. White, we gotta throw some chili powder into this. God, that ad must have cost millions for each actor. I do like that they seem to enjoy it. Like, all of the actors, there are some shows that end and then the actors have no interest in ever returning to it, like Steve Carell with The Office. But I like that everyone involved with Breaking Bad seems to just be stoked to let it be a meme. You ever fuck with Hyperpop? Hyperpop? Is Caro Caro Bonito considered Hyperpop? Or is like 100 Gex Hyperpop? Because I don't listen to the latter. I don't listen to Zoomer Nightcore, if that's what you're asking. Gex Guppy? No. You know, I'm not even gonna riff on it, because I listened to music like that when I was younger. Not like that, but like very fast, high-pitched music. But no, really, there's not a point I can remember in my current life I've listened to Hyperpop. Not to say it's bad. I don't think there's bad music. I listen to some country. But I don't listen to Hyperpop. But I'm not going to kink shame you if you like Hyperpop. Because I once sat on a school bus and watched the Neon Cat video for 15 minutes straight while listening to that song. And if I do that, then I'm not allowed to insult anybody else's taste in music ever. Is Neon Cat hyperpop? Eh. Weezer is hyperpop. I'm gonna look up Weezer hyperpop and see what I find. Of course it autofills the result. Say it ain't so, but it's a hyperpop song. Yeah, so far. I'm gonna skip ahead. At first I thought it was someone else singing it, but they actually did just pitch up Rivers Cuomo 24 semitones. You can't hear it? Oh, goodness. Let me fix that. Maybe it's better that you don't hear it. Wait, so you guys didn't even hear the Rules of Life Adolf Hitler earlier? Oh, man. I don't know why it won't play, but the song keeps getting fucking louder and it's messing with my attention span. It became breakcore. That's enough. Oh, so I can't find any more hyperpop, but I did find an actual breakcore Weezer song. Yeah. I mean, the drums are there. I guess that's all you really need for breakcore. The Hyperpop one was well produced. Yeah, I guess I can say I've listened to Hyperpop now. I've been listening to ocean sounds this whole time, but no one else heard them. Well, you guys want to hear that Adolf Hitler Weezer song? This is the last one. Adolf Hitler. Rules of Life. Version 36. First lyric. You know, that adds a lot of context to what Weezer fans call the incident. If you know, you know. I can't remember what concert it was, but the incident. Yeah. So there was a concert in Japan like 20 years ago where Rivers Cuomo, totally shit-faced in the middle of a concert, just yells Heil Hitler, and then someone in the crowd goes, "What the fuck?" And then no one ever spoke of it. Oh god, don't remind me of the Sharp incident. Fuck, I actually heard that one too. Ooh. Matt Sharp got kicked out of the band because he thought it would be okay to use the word during a song. Like when you're singing along to it. That's why Matt Sharp left the band. Ugh. I guess I don't know if I want to describe it. There was an acoustic show, unplugged. There was an unplugged Weezer show. Matt Sharp was there, and he started, we'll say, singing a rap song. And then a certain word came up. And, it flew by. And, I think you can fill in the dots. You know, I have had a phase where I'll go back and listen to live Weezer concerts, just like random 1,000 view concerts. And one thing I've learned about, like, Weezer during the era where Matt Sharp was still the bassist, he undeniably had the greatest energy. I know this is strange to say following up what I just said, but he was the most energetic member of Weezer at live shows. One problem I've always had with Weezer is they just play their songs tit for tat and they don't change anything, and it can be boring. And they don't even play deep cuts at live shows. But when Matt Sharp was in the band, he would play the funkiest bass riffs you've ever heard out of nowhere. And they were not on the original tracks. He would just totally improv on the bass. And it was actually technically very impressive. It was interesting. I think he had a very abrasive personality. And I don't think it could have worked with him and Rivers because I think they both wanted to be the front man. And they didn't like this whole seclusion of I don't know, credit. I think he wanted to do his own thing, but part of why early Weezer was so iconic, I'm going to say Matt Sharp did play a pretty instrumental part in that. At least in the live shows, he made it much more I'll use the word interesting. And that one incident, it's not like it was he doesn't have like batshit political takes. He seems to be a pretty progressive, cool guy. That was a pretty awkward incident, but he was a great musician. And I like the Reynolds. He doesn't really do that much now, though. Mikey Welsh carried in the interviews. Yeah, Mikey was good. He just wasn't around, unfortunately, long enough to really cement himself in their legacy, I guess. At least for people outside of the Weezer fan base. Which is unfortunate, just because he passed away. So, what can you do? It was a 2-pack song being done over the intro of Undone. Oh. There's the context. You see the new set lists? Yeah. I thought it was cool that they're adding I Gave Up the Love of My Dreams. I wonder why that is. I think it's okay. It's still a lot of the greatest hits. I really wish they would do a concert that wasn't all greatest hits. I want to hear some make-believe. I want to hear some actual, like, deep-cut B-sides. They don't really play those much. All they play is fucking Buddy Holly Undone. Which is weird because they complained about it for so long, about not wanting to be that band. But they've really embraced it. And more power to them, but man, if you've been to one Weezer concert, you've been to all of them. Yeah, I remember when Rivers tweeted about the femboys. I think that was the AI Rivers, but I remember it. Hmm. I won't get into it, but my D&D campaign is still going strong, and we are currently house sitting. What happened was we were clearing out a base of these enemies, and then a fucking dragon showed up, and we were all like, fuck this, we're gonna die. So we basically emergency dialed our boss and had them just intercept us and teleport us out. But because we did that, we lost our ship and all of our all of our stuff essentially. So we have nothing to do in D&D besides house sit right now, basically. How long is this D&D campaign going? It's not. There's not really an end point right now. It's an ongoing campaign. I mean, a few of us have sort of goals for our characters. I have a few for mine, but we're not rushing to get there. It's a very sort of episodic. It's an episodic D&D campaign. It's not one that's meant to end in 4 months. It really just ends whenever people decide it's time to end. And I could see it going for another year. I'll play it as long as my party members will, honestly. And we are at level 11, so we're halfway through, and if you're going by levels. Does the fuse get itchy? The fuse is like hair. You know those cartoon babies that just have a single spiral of hair at the top of their head? That's what the fuse on Bommy is. A single strand of hair. It's a nerve ending. Am I a Scott Pilgrim guy? I watched the movie finally and I liked it. I still need to read the comics. I'm a fan. I'm not gonna say I'm a diehard of it, but I think it's influenced me in a few ways. A few subtle kind of, like how I make videos and stuff. A D&D campaign is just a place, I don't know, it's a party of characters following a story. It is the barricades, the boundaries that define. I don't know what how the fuck do you describe a campaign with a word that isn't a campaign? Like, you know how a movie is a movie because there's a start and a finish to it? A campaign is what defines the start and the finish of a group of players playing D&D. A journey. Yeah, it's a journey. A game of D&D. It's a save file. Do I have the chords for Reality Blind? That's a funny question. I appreciate it. I don't have it, but I guarantee you it's probably just D-A-G. It's just an open D, an open A, and an open G in some order. And if you play each of those, you can probably figure it out. Because I played that back when my only concept of chords was just the whole chord and not the note. I'm working on animation. Do you have any tips for animators? I don't have tips. I think there are more educated people to ask. What kind of animation are you doing? Are you doing 3D or 2D? Are you doing Are you animating out a full scene? Is it a character interaction? I think it's good to know the bounds of what you're trying to animate. 3D. Just know your interface. Understand how keyframes work. Understand what each type of spline does. So the curves that appear whenever you smooth keyframes. Understand what the differences are. You don't have to understand in words or in detail, but if you're trying to get a certain type of animation, the best thing you can do is understand the tool you're working with. I'm going to share a fun thing I learned while studying Junji Ito. So Junji Ito, before he was a mangaka making horror manga, he was a dentist, or maybe a dental assistant. And in an interview, he said, as a dental assistant, I learned to manipulate my tools as I needed them. So if I had a scalpel or something, but I needed to get in on a tooth at a certain angle, I would bend the end of the scalpel. And he said when he became a mangaka, that skill translated because he could bend the end of his pens. If he needed to draw a certain type of line or have a certain sort of effect with his ink, he would manipulate his tools to work the way he needed them to. And I think that applies to all creative pursuits in a lot of ways. So if you're animating, you need to be able to manipulate your tools to make them do what you want them to. In this case, that would be having a certain type of interpolation between your keyframes. But it can mean a million things. It can mean how you do timing in your animation. It can mean, you know, where you place your camera or how you do perspective tricks. Just learn the interface. If you're using Blender, learn Blender. Specifically learn the timeline and the graphic editor and all that. Or whatever graphic editor equivalent Blender uses. Also, yeah, if you didn't know, Junji Ito was a dentist, and that's why he's really good at drawing teeth. Tell me this isn't the art of someone who has spent half their life inside someone's mouth. Tell me. Phrasing. This is probably a better example. I'm not going to show that one for as long. But he's very good at drawing teeth. The throat coat. That shouldn't have made me laugh. I'm realizing the chat box hasn't been visible this whole time either. That was supposed to be up. My bad. Yeah. Still one of the goats. Another fun fact about this video I'm working on. I rummaged through my storage and I found a cork board. One of those big boards you put on the wall and then you like pin paper to it. Like conspiracy theory boards. I got one of those because I have to plan out the storyboarding, the animatic, the animation, and then the post-production on this video. And there's so much shit I have to juggle in my head on, like, wait, what do I need to get? What do I need to... There are different assets and environments I gotta get from people, and I was having trouble keeping track of it all. So next to my desk, right behind it, I don't have my webcam, so I can't show it right now, but I have, like 50 sticky notes detailing the start and the end of this video, and all of the things I need to still get made or produced or sent to me. And it's actually helped a lot because I don't have to juggle all of this information in my brain. I never thought I would be like the industrialist YouTuber that has to plot out a video start to finish, but that's where I'm at currently. What did I think of Scarlet and Violet? I didn't play it. Everyone I've heard has said it's almost the Pokemon game they wanted, and it's almost there if you just look past all of the parts that aren't it. And I chose to not buy it because I figure if I give them 5 generations to iterate, they'll be at roughly 50% of the Pokemon game I want. And I've waited about 2 generations now, so 3 more and then I'll play Pokemon again. I think it looks fun. I think I would probably enjoy it if I started playing it, but I didn't have a desire to play it. I didn't want to look at a game where I had to compromise my expectations that much of like, I've played this franchise for 20 years, well, 10 years, 15? Since I was a child, and I know the formula, I know what I don't like about it, and I know a lot of that is still there. So, rather than enduring that to see the half efforts to try new things, I'm just gonna not buy it. It wasn't a boycott, it wasn't to send a statement, it was just I didn't really feel like playing it. Thumbtacks and string and all. Well, thumbtacks and all. I don't have string yet. Thoughts on being on the PST podcast? It made me really happy that they had invited me on. I've been friends with that sort of group of people for a long time, and I still talk to them a lot outside of even the PST. But it was really fun to get invited onto that. I didn't even though I know Ed pretty well, I know his energy pretty well. He still brought way more energy to that podcast than I had planned for. So I think I ended up I would call myself a social chameleon, which is it's not that I try to like adjust my personality so people like me. It's that if I'm around people with super high energy, I like to bounce that energy and reciprocate it, but I don't go to that energy level. I've Ed and really all of them were so high energy. Even more so than when we hang out. It was fun. It was a fun experience. I think my energy fluctuates depending on who's in the room, I guess is what I'm saying. Not by like trying to mask it, but I think comedy is funnier when there's sort of a friction to bounce off of. And if you're totally agreeable with someone all the time, that's fine. I think being agreeable is cool. But I find I laugh the hardest when I press someone at their tension. Or I try to straight man them, or vice versa. Which is usually what ends up when I hang out with them. Just get quiet and get all my zingers out when I can. Yeah, if people liked Scarlet and Violet of Pokemon, more power to them. I'm not judging you for it. Just wasn't for me. Alright, when did I start streaming? I actually forgot. It was like 6? I think I've been going for a while, so I may be looking for a stopping point soon. About 2 hours ago. Okay. Yeah. So, I wasn't really planning on playing a game or anything tonight. So, I think I'm gonna call it here, because I need to eat my dinner. I'm already past the time I should be eating. But thank you for chatting, subbing, lurking, or just being. I think I'm going to end stream, and you can expect me back next Tuesday. I'm going out tomorrow to a stand-up show, so I won't be streaming on Saturday. There's a possibility you see me on Sunday or sometime before Tuesday. If you do, I'll probably be starting to play a game then. If not, definitely Tuesday. To know when I'm live, I have a Twitter and I have a Discord that I try to update. And if you weren't here at the beginning of the stream, I'm still working on a big video. I got about 20 minutes of an animated storyboard that I have to go properly 3D animate now. But there may be a smaller video before then. I'm still deciding on like what I will do. So thank you again. Live long and live well. Brush your teeth and remember the rules of life. All right. Take care, everybody. See you next stream or whenever our paths cross again. Bye. Tonberry.